everyone, and welcome to Capes, Cowls Masks, the show where we uncover the world of soups and science fiction. I'm your host, Jake Hart. I'm a podcaster and a writer for Fresh Take Hub, and as always, I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts.
Hi there, Tom Gapper, resident comic book shogun, sci-fi enthusiast, and all-round nice guy.
Less dramatic than last week's intro, I'd have to say. No, the one before that. Yeah.
Yeah, not setting the bar too high with like the, you know.
Well, the last time you complained, Dave, that I set the bar too high, so so I'm just being a nice guy, as I said.
Just trying to balance it out. Is just like, you know, you can be a good lover, but also be a nice guy.
You know what? Fuck you, Dave. I am a god. Okay, I am a god.
He tried to do the nice guy thing. Wasn't working for him.
This is. I will smite you, Dave.
Yeah, so I am the I am the smited. However the word is for that. I am David Osger. I am also a podcaster, content creator, and writer over on Fresh Take Hub.
Glad to have you back, Tom. We missed you last week. We talked about some fun stuff, but we got some fun stuff to talk about this week. You know, we'll be talking about in the Shang-Chi trailer in our main topic. But before we get into that, how have you been, man? What have you been up to?
Well, work's been incredibly busy, but whilst I've not been working, I've just I finally finished Mass Effect, and needless to say, there were some tears in the end there. And also, currently in my Marvel read-through, I've been just picking up some Miss Marvel, so good preparation for the upcoming series, and also have had a chance to start Immortal Hulk from the start again, and I'm just loving every second of it. Every line, every word, every panel, it's just sublime. It's like taking all my willpower not to just divert from my read-through and to just like keep reading Immortal Hulk, but I'm going to be a good boy. Going to be a good boy and do it right.
You love that book. You can't put it down. How about yourself, Dave?
Apart from like literally editing, recording a podcast, editing it, and then literally coming on to now recording another podcast straight away. So I'm very podcast focused at the moment. I have had time to fit in some films in the past week. You know, sometimes I like switch between like a TV series kind of week and a film kind of week. It's been more of a film week. The past week, I've was continuing my as long-time listeners will know, my kaiju watch through. I watched Mothra. Also, a while ago I was sort of going through like Spielberg films, so I rounded off the Indiana Jones trilogy with The Last Crusade, and I'm very much looking forward to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I'm not being sarcastic here. I can't wait. And also watched Akira, which was just like an experience, just absolutely gorgeous anime. What a delight that was.
Yeah, speaking of Indiana Jones, they really need to be careful with Harrison Ford, because have you heard about this? He's injured himself on Indy.
I'm just getting Force Awakens. Yeah, Force Awakens flashbacks I'm getting right now. But the guy survived a plane crash, so...
The guy's 78 years old. Can we not have him doing these action scenes? You know, let's bring that guy in or something.
No, I think he'll outlive us all. I don't think we have to.
I think the time period is the only thing I'm worried about with that one, because I know the set photos, like you can see like Nazis and stuff, but because he's got like loads of dots on his face, people are speculating whether
Space Nazis.
There's some form of no, this is Indy has the dots on his face. But yeah, people are speculating whether there's some kind of de-aging going on, obviously, but it's whether it's just one part of the film, which I'd be fine with if it's like, flashback. But that's what I enjoyed about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. They were like, oh, like he's older now. Let's put it in the Cold War, etc. So I think that theme of like evolving to the different, wars and history is quite fun. So I wouldn't want to just go backwards.
Yeah, moving on from Nazis as a villain and having good old-fashioned Russian villains. Like the good old days.
Get the Soviets in there.
Though it would be hard to top Cate Blanchett, to be fair.
Oof. I mean, come on, man. I love Cate Blanchett, but that film did not do her any favors whatsoever.
I want to know. I want to see it all. Show me everything.
Well, you know what, guys? Like, I got to be reunited with my family this week. Like, I was meant to go see them last year, but obviously the pandemic happened. So it was really nice to see my boys, Dominic Toretto and Ludacris, all back. Get the families all back together. I am talking about seeing Fast and the Furious 9 in the cinema. That is my family right there, mi familia. And I had an absolute blast, man. It was like, I've been watching all of them, like all the Fast and Furious films leading up to the 9th one at home. And then seeing the 9th one in the cinema truly makes me realize this is what I go to the cinema for, like for big movies like this. And it's just a whole nother experience. Seeing these cars do the most ridiculous things, and for the characters to come out of these ridiculous things without a scratch to them. But it's all fun. It's all about family and all about barbecue and Corona, and it's just a blast. So if you're a fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, I highly recommend seeing the 9th installment. Although if you're Dave and haven't seen a single one, I'll be like, please do, because your life will be changed. I'm still trying to work out how to get Dave to watch these films.
If you're like me, then you walk into a cinema, sit down to watch Fast and the Furious 9 and walk out once the trailers are finished because you were just there to get free parking and nothing else. Sorry, F9.
I liked Tokyo Drift.
It's a good one, man. It's a good one. And in fact, that film, which people at the time dismissed of, it's a spin-off, it's not really following the main characters, has now become like the central plot point for all 9 films, which is ridiculous. But highly recommend. Even you don't need to have seen the previous 8 films, Tom. You just go to the cinema and have fun with this because it's absolutely crazy.
I've actually seen like more Fast and the Furious films than I care to admit, and I did kind of enjoy most of them for what they were.
They're great fun. They're great fun. Right, so let's get into the news then.
Tear up page 1, run that photo instead. Headline: Spider-Man, hero or menace? Exclusive Daily Bugle photo.
So we're talking about crazy car carnage with F9. Well, we now go to another franchise which has been infamous for having ludicrous big on-screen action, which is the Transformers franchise. It's still being, named Transformers 7. They've sent out a few more details now as it started filming. So we've got a logo and a title, which is Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And we've also got a synopsis for the film and a bit more information about who is starring in it. I think we had like a bit of information as who was speculated to be cast, but I think it's a bit more official now. So we have Anthony Ramos, who's from In the Heights. We also got Dominique Fishback, who has recently appeared in Judas and the Black Messiah. And very recently as well, Ron Perlman has been cast as the voice of Optimus Primal. So in an interview, Ramos is said to play a flawed and vulnerable hero who has made mistakes in his life and is eager to redeem himself with the help of Optimus Prime. This latest installment will be directed by Stephen Capel Jr., who previously directed Creed 2, and the film will be written by Joby Harold, who also wrote this year's Army of the Dead. So the sort of synopsis or information we've had from it so far is the returning to the action and spectacle the first captured moviegoers around the world 14 years ago with the original Transformers. Transformers Rise of the Beasts will take audiences on a 90s globe-trotting adventure and introduce the Maximals, Predacons, and Terracons in the existing battle on Earth between Autobots and Decepticons. Directed by Stephen Capel Jr. and starring Anthony Ramos and Dominique Fishback, the film arrives in theaters June 24th, 2022, so not actually that long as well. So what do you guys think? What are your experiences with the Transformers franchise up till now? And maybe in the past, obviously we talked about things like Masters of the Universe recently, so I suppose people's connection to the cartoons and the toys are kind of maybe apt in this situation as well.
I mean, my experience with Transformers, I feel can be summed up by saying Michael Bay knows how to make two things well. That's explosions and money. It's the only explanation for why he keeps getting work. But yeah, I mean, as I said to you guys before we started the show, like you don't really go to Transformers movies for quality storytelling or Oscar-worthy films. You just go to see giant robots smash each other. So long as this film has plenty of robots smashing each other, I'm going to enjoy it well enough. I'm not like I said, I'm not expecting gold here, but I mean, yeah, seeing the beasts come into it, excited for that. Just because that opens up a whole new area of robots smashing each other. So yeah, I mean, I'm as excited for this Transformers film as I am any Transformers film, which is to say, not really that much, but I'll see if it's on or if I'm bored.
Well, a testament to your experience or taste of the Transformers films, like Dark of the Moon. Have you seen that one? The third one, I think that is. With like Leonard Nimoy.
I feel like I have seen that one. Yeah.
They do kind of blend together, I suppose.
They really do.
Compared to something then like Bumblebee, I think those are like two that, pop in my mind as like bad. And then like getting better, like, it's improved. So, Jake, do you have an opinion on the films so far and what your expectations are?
Not an opinion I freely express often, I would say. No, I've never really been a huge on Transformers. As a kid, I never was sort of got attached to them. I remember having a couple of the toys, but it wasn't a big deal for me, and I never watched the animated shows or anything, so wasn't huge growing up with it. So when the new films were coming out from Michael Bay, I was like, okay, whatever, watch these. And I quite enjoyed the first one. I will defend the first one and say, it's not a fantastic film by any means, but it's a fun Transformers film with robots kicking ass. After that, they just were pretty terrible, and I stopped. I think the fourth one was the last one I watched. I can't remember what the names were of them again. Like you said, they all sort of blend in together.
They're all one film, Jake.
It's all one film. But yeah, no, they just kept on getting worse for me. I couldn't deal with it anymore. Like, I know that it might seem ironic considering I'm a fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, and in a way they have similar sort of styles. But for me, it's the human element that I connect to the Fast and Furious franchise. I like the cast of characters and the actors who portray them, while the Transformers didn't have that for me. So I found myself struggling to get attached to the actual robots. Sure, it was cool them flying about and kicking ass, but why do we care, sort of thing. And the sound design's great. That's pretty much all I can give those films. So I pretty much gave up on the franchise. I didn't watch the fifth one. I haven't seen Bumblebee, even though people have said I should give it a shot, because it's actually better than all the others, pretty much. So I don't know. I might have to watch Bumblebee for them to sort of change my mind on the franchise. And if I find that entertaining enough, I'll go, okay, I'll check this out. But I am intrigued with the names behind this sort of, I don't know if it's a reboot or within the same universe as the Michael Bay films, because they say it's a 90s film. So, which is weird to think that 90s now is a period piece. God, I'm old.
Oh, God.
It is, though. It is. Like, it's 3 decades ago now, which is crazy.
I blame Captain Marvel for this.
Yeah, so Dominique Fishback, I really enjoyed her in Judas and the Black Messiah, and Ron Perlman, who doesn't love Ron Perlman, so I'm up for anything. So yeah, I'm cautious going into there. I don't know if I'm going to be rushing to see this. I might have to sort of watch Bumblebee before I sort of get excited for the Transformers again. They sort of stung me quite badly.
I do like the idea of like 90s globe-trotting adventure, just for the possibility that we might have a fight scene with Fives Keep On Moving playing in the background, which I think is something the world needs to see. Just like Optimus Primal and all these like beasts are just smashing the hell out of each other while just get on up when you're down. It would be amazing.
Yeah, I suppose really, I'm the one with maybe the stronger connection, but then again, that's again not much. I'm not, again, a sort of diehard Transformers fan or anything like that. But I feel it was a bit more like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for me in terms of like, it was always there kind of thing, rather than like something like Masters of the Universe, in which I kind of was aware of it, but it wasn't really a part of my childhood. Whereas Transformers, I was always aware of it as one of those big cartoons and franchises, I did check out some of the animated shows they used to do. And my biggest connection probably would be Beast Wars, which this is kind of adapting, because that very much, well, it's apt that they're doing it set in the 90s, because I think that's what they're very much doing is, even though Captain Marvel and maybe the X-Men films started this trend of sort of putting these films into periods like the 80s and the 90s, I think Stranger Things kind of done it as well. I think so now that they're like, oh, we've rinsed the 80s and let's do the 90s. But they know that a lot of their fan base and a lot of the audience is kind of like children of the 90s, so they're baiting them with that nostalgia. And the fact that Beast Wars come out in the 90s is one of those early 3D cartoons, and when you watch it back now, it just looks like so weird because it looks like an animatic. It doesn't look like it's been finished, but that's kind of like what those like 3D cartoons used to look like back in the day. But I remember as a kid thinking it was like amazing because it was like, you had like Optimus Prime, there's like this gorilla, and you had the cheetah character, and then there's like a T-Rex, and you're just like, like Megatron and like a Velociraptor and stuff. You're like, what? And like giant insects and stuff like that. So it's kind of just fun to me, the cars and the trucks and everything. It's cool, it's fun, but there's something unique about seeing an animal transform into a robot, because you'd have like a character like Waspinator, which like is then got like this big like wasp head on his chest and all that kind of stuff, and he speaks like a wasp, of course he's like Waspinator and all this kind of stuff. So it was very goofy and silly in that way, and they actually did a really kind of dark and like strange sequel series. I can't remember the exact name of it now. It was like Beast Wars Armada or something like that, and that was quite a dark series actually. It took it down a weird route. So again, it wasn't like the kind of thing in which I've like watched every single episode or I have it there on DVD or anything like that, but I had a few of the toys, and yeah, I have some good memories of it. So for me, I just don't understand why they haven't called this Transformers Beast Wars. I just like Rise of the Beasts just doesn't sound right to me. I don't know, it just sounds a bit odd. I think Rise.
Or maybe it's because this is the Rise of the Beast. Because this is the Rise of the Beast, and then maybe the next film will be the start of the Beast Wars. Yeah, and then it's just like a whole like 10 more films they can do in that, buddy. 10 films of Beast Wars.
But I'm surprised. I don't know if it's the industry, the trade, sort of like advertising this as, saying Transformers 7 is, named Rise of the Beasts. I don't know if the studio is considering it Transformers 7, because a lot of people after Bumblebee considered this to be the kind of like reboot of the series, etc. So it's weird that a lot of the industry is referring to this as Transformers 7, because that suggests that it's carrying on the series from, the Michael Bay films, etc. So, and personally for myself with the films, like Jake, I liked the first one. I thought it turned terrible with the second. Absolutely detested the third one. I was so angry sitting in that cinema that I never watched them again. I didn't go watch the fourth one. I didn't go watch the fifth one. But I did watch Bumblebee because I was glad that they were kind of going back to the more roots of the animation. And it was kind of a singular story. It was focused on like the girl and Bumblebee. And I think that is set... Is that set maybe in the 80s or 90s?
Yeah, I think that one was a period piece as well, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm just trying to think whether I think it's 80s. But... yeah, and I really liked that film. I think that I was disappointed it didn't make more money because I felt that it deserved to have more. And I was quite a fan of the director because he did a lot of the Leica animations. So, it was nice to see him make the transition. But I think that film, I do encourage you to watch it, Jake, because it just makes a good balance of kind of like heart. You've got really good human characters. John Cena, it's kind of, good to see him maybe in a role before something like Suicide Squad. And yeah, I just think even though they keep the kind of similar Michael Bay designs, they kind of understood the sort of goofiness and everything a bit more, and what's appealing about the franchise, but while still having an interesting character in, with the human lead. And, it's Haley Steinfeld, so you get to see her before Hawkeye, etc. as well. So yeah, I really like that film, and I hope that that's the template they go in for, which they have said in the past that they are. I don't know if the fact they didn't make as much money has sort of put them off that. But the fact that they say that this is in the 90s and it's, globe-trotted and all this kind of stuff, and it's Beast Wars, kind of maybe suggests to me that they're still going with that kind of more classic approach. Though it does make me laugh when they're just like, oh yes, 14 years since like, the world was introduced to them in the cinema. And I'm like, what about that old like cartoon film with Leonard Nimoy and everything like that? Don't forget that. That film is just craziness.
Bumblebee, is that set within the same universe as the Michael Bay films, or is that like a reboot or something?
Well, that's the thing. They kind of do like a Days of Future Past with it. It's kind of like there's nothing in the start of that film, especially because they have the kind of like G1, I think, designs they call it, which they look like their actual animation models when they're like escaping Cybertron and all that kind of stuff. So that suggests that it's nothing to do with the Michael Bay films. But then, like during the film, I don't think it's much of a spoiler, but if you don't want any spoilers to this film, but like at the end of it, yeah, you see him turn into the car that he is in the first Transformers film. And you see Optimus driving on a bridge, so it kind of suggests that they're setting that up. But they do it as a kind of like both, so it could be like, oh, this could be the reboot, or this could be going into the Michael Bay universe, whichever way you want to see it.
Yeah. I just hope Michael Bay's hands are not involved too much, because I've seen that he's producing this film. But I hope that's more of a, let's just slap Michael's name on it, because he started the franchise, and he's not actively involved in the franchise, in this film anyway. And one last thing I'll say as well, that I haven't seen In the Heights yet, and I think it's very unfortunate that it hasn't been doing that well at the box office, but I have to say, despite that, it's good to see Anthony Ramos getting another big gig and another opportunity to show himself to the world and what he can do. And Transformers is a big franchise to jump on, so good on him. I'm glad that they're still, employing these actors to work despite box office failures and stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. He was like cast in this before In the Heights come out, so I suppose if they were judging it on like the performance of that film, it's like, well, too late, but
well, yeah, they must have seen the dailies and stuff, so
exactly, yeah. So I think that, but if they wanted to be like, oh, we want Anthony Ramos like the next star, then he might not be like a star yet, but I think that he's a great choice for it. I think that what I've seen him in, like I said, he's in Hamilton, he's in which is like the stage version, which you can see on Disney Plus, and he's in the Heights, and he is great. He's such a good actor. He's so charismatic. He's got like so great sort of like young look to him. So I think that lots of people will sort of like relate to him and kind of not see him as like too old, like where we had like Mark Wahlberg, etc. But he won't be too much of a kind of screechy running around teenager like Shia LaBeouf could be in those films as well. So I think that. And again, I think one of the like things I hated most about those Michael Bay films is, I think it's well known, isn't it, that Megan Fox was like really badly treated by him and those films, and just the way that like he objectifies women and shows them, I think is disgusting, to be honest. So I think that this is definitely going in the right direction by having a sort of more accomplished actress, or an actress who I imagine wouldn't be just there like, oh yeah, I'm just going to sort of like bend over a bonnet and that kind of stuff in Dominique Fishback. But obviously I think they learned their lesson with that kind of stuff by having Haley Steinfeld in Bumblebee, etc. So
my sort of feelings are that I don't know enough about these actors to really have a judgment. I've seen Ramos around, obviously, in advertisements for In the Heights. I kind of agree with you, Dave. He does kind of have that sort of like youthful look to him that's, a lot of people can maybe like relate to, maybe a bit more than people could relate to Shia LaBeouf, because who the fuck can relate to that guy? Too mean?
Yeah, nah. He's a bit of a mess, so.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, even though I'm not particularly familiar with these actors, I'm happy to give them a chance. And I mean, mainly whenever I come across actors I'm not familiar with, I just end up watching them, and I'm sat there going, now, who could you play in the MCU? So yeah, I'm tentatively, like I said before, I'm kind of excited for this Transformers film in much the same way I'm excited for any Transformers film, which is not a great deal, but I'll probably end up watching it at some point, and I imagine I won't hate it.
I think the main thing with this one is like the look as well of the Transformers. Like, to have like Optimus Prime turn into a truck is one thing, and in animation you can get away with like a robot turning into a cheetah and vice versa, but in live action it like depends if they're going to be like an actual realistic cheetah, or like it's going to be some form of, you know, ode to the cartoon in which it looks more like a kind of CG robot cheetah. So I'm assuming that's the direction they'll go, but rather than, you know, realistic cheetah, because that would just be very, very strange.
I just think they're going off like some of what you guys were saying about like the 90s nostalgia. If studios want to appeal to my 90s nostalgia, where's my Bionicle film? That's what I want to know. Where's my Bionicle film?
That's a good shout.
Well, if we're talking about like Transformers potentially looking weird, then they definitely would look weird in like modern CGI.
I would tolerate it because Bionicles were awesome, and I had a lot of Bionicles.
I would go see a Bionicle film. I would do that.
Crossover Transformers versus Bionicles versus Beyblade
Versus Fast and the Furious.
With the other films, you know, again, you've got Optimus Prime, you've got Bumblebee, and even though you got characters like Ironhide and Ratchet and all that, they're all kind of like much the same. They're all just kind of like badass or like scientists or something. But at least with, you know, the Maximals and all those kind of things, like I said earlier, with Waspinator and all those kind of things, you got very like big characters, very like over the top, and it should just make for a more enjoyable kind of team. They won't just be all generic robots. You know, you got like Rat Trap, Rhinox, Cheetor. They were all kind of like their own characters. They all had their own thing, which wasn't just like, oh, we're all like robots, we all like carry guns, and we're all like badasses. You know, they had their own quirks and their own characters. So hopefully they bring that through as well. It isn't just kind of like Anthony Ramos and friends. You know, it's, you know, you want the robots to be characters in the film as well, which will be strange because, again, the only time that we've seen that so far is just maybe Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, and he's not even a character who speaks. He just speaks through his radio. So, you know, will we actually finally get competent voice, you know, what, okay, I take that back. Voice actors, you know, I'm not dissing Peter Cullen or anything for any, you know, amount of time. But yeah, it's whether we'll get like actual sort of voice actors or sort of like charismatic actors who are sort of playing these Transformers rather than just sort of like a generic voice.
I think just get Bradley D. Baker to do the voices for the Transformers. Yeah, like because he's an incredible voice actor. I mean, to be honest, he could probably pull it off, and we'd all love it.
Just bring in like the theme song as well from the 90s show, like Beast Wars. Go watch it after we've recorded. It's a fun time.
Well, let's hope they can muster something good to watch because, as I said, I'm not a fan of the Transformers franchise, so they're going to need to do something good to bring me back to this franchise. But from the 90s then, we'll go to the noughties, and the CW DC universe is huge, but it all started from Smallville. So ever since Tom Welling returned in... Tom, what was it? Was it Crisis on
Infinite Earths?
That's the one. When he returned in the CW crossover Crisis on Infinite Earths, it got fans of the original series speculating, going crazy about could he return as Superman? And maybe in some way. So on Twitter, he was talking to some fans, and some people asked him about what's going on with Smallville, and apparently there's an animated series in the works from himself and Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor in Smallville. This is his quote online. He said, "Michael Rosenbaum and I are actually working on an animated series to bring those characters back to life and to use as many of the original cast members as possible. Don't tell anybody, though. It's a secret. We're still working on it." End quote. So, yeah, they're somehow trying to bring back Smallville to life, but in animated form. I think it's a really interesting choice to do it in animated form, considering how people were clamoring to see these actors back in the roles, especially Michael Rosenbaum, because he didn't return in the big crossover, and I think he was even offered to return, and he said no, which is interesting. So I'll ask you guys, are either you guys fans of Smallville? I know it was, hugely popular amongst fans, which created the DC universe that everyone now loves. I'll start with you, Tom. What are your thoughts on Smallville and the potential of this revival of the franchise through an animated series?
Well, I am quite excited for this. I mean, I never watched all of Smallville. I've probably watched maybe half of it, maybe, just because of I just when I was going through watching it, it just didn't seem easily available to me. But hearing about this animated series coming, I'm definitely going to be picking it up and finishing it. From what I saw of the show, I did really enjoy it, and I can definitely see like why people love it so much. And I think it makes sense to maybe carry on the story in animated form, just because it probably gives them more of an opportunity to show off Tom Welling's Superman, like a bit more, can get a bit more action out of that. And also just because of like the time it's been, and I feel like it's definitely going to be set between the end of Smallville and when he appears in Crisis, because spoiler alert, skip like 15 seconds if you don't want to hear a spoiler. And in Crisis, he's given up his powers because they go to him for help, and he's just like, I'm not powerful anymore. I'm just a dude. And so I feel like it has to be set in that time period. And it's probably as well, I get the vibe that it's probably going to be one of those just like limited series, maybe like 1, possibly 2 seasons at most, because I feel like it is just literally there to help give fans some proper closure, because many felt the Crisis didn't give them the closure they actually wanted, which I can kind of agree with. I can see why people might have been upset with how Crisis handled Tom Welling Superman, but c'est la vie. So yeah, just cautiously optimistic. I'll definitely check it out, and it's definitely going to push me to watch the rest of Smallville. The one thing I find funny now, I forget the actress's name, but they say that they're planning to bring as many of the original cast members as possible. There's definitely one that they're not going to bring back. Can't remember her name, but I do know an original cast member of Smallville was kind of implicated in some weird, I want to say cannibalistic cult.
Wasn't Arnie Hammer, was it?
No, it wasn't Arnie. I want to say it was cult, like, but in my head, I've got the name like Alison Mack or Mackie or something like that. But I know she was like in a lot of Smallville episodes, and she's definitely not going to be coming back to it. So yeah, Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I haven't got much of an attachment to Smallville, to be honest. I remember it being on. It was kind of one of those programs that was like on Channel 4 or E4 in like the mornings and stuff like that. So Saturday mornings, it was always on, and you kind of just see fleeting glimpses of it then. But to me, it was back in the day again when they were like, I was never like big into programs like that. I didn't really get that big into sort of watching big TV series and stuff until they started up their budget, or they at least tried to look more like films. I can get on board if it was something like when it's something like sort of Being Human or something like that, in which they've set like restraints on the series in which that they don't need like a massive VFX budget. But of course, like sitcoms and stuff like that, I always enjoyed, especially, and I sort of let it slide as well with something like Heroes. But I just found something like Smallville, I was kind of like, I just never felt that it had the budget that it needed to. And it was just that idea of, they did it with a few series of being like, oh, what was this character like before they became them? And I'm like, I don't really care, so it's, especially for like stretching that out for like, what was it, like 8 to 10 seasons or something like that? I was just like,
10,
how long can you have him, which you literally be like, oh, he's gonna be Superman next season. He's still gonna be Superman, and how many things can happen in Smallville, which like shape is before he's Superman. The fact that they've got like all the villains eventually turn up. But so I was never interested in it. And it was so, to me, again, like back in the day of like, when you had things like One Tree Hill and stuff, the fact that it's got like this American opening with like a rock band playing, and like you got like shots of Smallville and like people, it's not quite turning to camera, but they had the shots of everyone and the names and all that kind of stuff. It's very much like, American rock band playing, like a kind of almost like those sort of crime shows you get where some sort of Journey song is playing in the background, etc. So I just never that never appealed to me, that kind of like very sort of teen kind of like approach to it in that way. So yeah, the only thing I found interesting with it is when we've now in the recent years started to have like Birds of Prey, and we've got like Martian Manhunter, etc., appearing in Justice League and stuff. Before that, some of the only times people could source a visual like live action adaptation of these characters was in Smallville. So sometimes I've seen like YouTube videos and stuff where they're like, oh, every appearance of Dr. Fate within like DC adaptations or something, and like they turned up in Smallville, or like Blue Beetle and like Hawkman and weird characters like that. And I don't know, they just look goofy in those shows to me. They just, again, it was like a budget thing. But again, I was like, how many people can like Superman meet before he becomes Superman? So I respect it for the fact that they were able to bring in like, Zatanna, Dr. Fate, all those kind of characters. Kudos to them for doing that. And, I hear that a lot of people were happy with the, the finale once he did finally become Superman. But I don't know, it just wasn't my kind of vibe. It was very much of that kind of like era of television, which was like Buffy and that kind of stuff. And I was just never into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Dave. I share a lot of the concerns that you had. That I remember tuning into a couple of episodes and just being like, it's like, this is not for me. Like, I'm here to see Superman doing Superman things, and this is very sort of teen drama, soap opera-y. And the budget, I was just like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm watching these, going to the cinema and seeing these big spectacle movies and what they're able to do. I'm like, I think superheroes should be left for the big screen. This was bear in mind, this is a very different time to what we're in now. So, this is when TV was considered a less superior form of storytelling to films. So it was also given the budget for that. It wasn't given much. But yeah, I do admire them for, the Dr. Fate one I was going to pull. Like, they managed to get these weird characters in there. So I admire them for going for them, because they always treated every season like, this is going to be our last season, so we might as well try and throw everything in it. Because with a lot of those shows at the time, and still is really now with TV shows, is that you don't know when you're ever going to be cancelled or renewed. So you might as well go for it in every season that you do. So I admire them for that. But with Smallville, it's very much the same problems I had with Gotham. Like you have, Dave, is like, how many times are you going to get all these characters to be meeting the main characters before they're the actual superhero? And all this stuff has happened. Like, I'm just like, this is adding so much more baggage to then me imagine when they're Superman, they've already encountered all these different heroes and storylines and stuff like that. It just didn't fly well with me. So, yeah, I've never seen the whole show in its entirety. I don't know if I'm going to in lead up to this, and because of that, I might give this one a miss. I don't know. If people say if it comes out and people say you should be checking this out, it's amazing, maybe I'll check it out. But it's not something I'm going to be rushing to go see, even though I do love Superman.
Well, what I will say, though, is when I heard this, I was like, actually, that, to me, maybe this is what they always needed from the beginning. I was like, this actually makes sense. I think the animation actually does quite suit it. Because is it kind of like a full series, or is it kind of more one of these DC direct-to-DVD kind of things?
It's unconfirmed. I still think they're probably working out all the kinks and stuff like that. But they have mentioned it's going to be a series.
So I think that approach can work, especially because what we've seen with the DC animated films, etc., that you've had like these, like the what's the one called, the Gods one and stuff like that, in which you have like alternate takes on like Superman and that kind of stuff. So I think that can work, especially because then you can play around with the timeline, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, like all of this happened before you Superman. You could take it down the route of like, oh, well, what if Superman never left Smallville, or what if Superman didn't want his powers, or that kind of thing. Or what if it was more of a teen drama. But yeah, I hearing it, I'm like, I would maybe be a bit more interested in watching it, because I don't know, maybe they could be like the next Invincible or something. You never know. They could make it work in, making it quite original as a DC property, because you wouldn't watch it and see like, big buff Superman from the Justice League cartoons. You'd be seeing like a more realistic design, which would be more true to the actors. So it might be so kind of unique and different in that sense.
Could work. I guess we'll have to wait and see if it ever even comes to fruition. Like I said, this was announced on his Twitter, so it's not like an official announcement from the studio or anything. Tom, what have you got for us then?
Oh, this week I've got some exciting news. It's JJ's back. We're bringing up JJ again. This is going to be happening a lot probably over the next couple of years, folks. It'll just be all JJ's announcing this. But yeah, him and Angela Robinson, who is known for writing on True Blood and Professor Marston and The Wonder Woman, which is a fantastic film if you've not seen it. They've announced that they're adapting DC Comics' Madam X as a HBO Max series. This is definitely keeping in line with all their plans for the Justice League Darkverse that they're clearly trying to set up there. And Madam X is going to be probably a huge part of that. So I'm very excited to see it. Before I chuck it to you guys, are you either of you aware of the character of Madam X, or as she is probably more well known, Madam Xanadu?
I am aware, but I do not have much information on the character.
According to Google, Madam X is the 14th studio album by American singer and songwriter Madonna. So no, I have no clue who this character.
I mean, you would be correct in saying that, Dave. Madam X is the 14th studio album by the hit pop artist Madonna. This is why I was
project for JJ to affiliate himself with. I'm really surprised by that.
I mean, like, me personally, they can call her Madam X all they like. It's Madam Xanadu. Like, I don't care how like they go, "Ooh, how cool it'd be if she." No, it's Madam Xanadu. Madam Xanadu is her name. Just leave it at that. But yeah, she's an ancient sorceress, really. I mean, she's been around since the days of King Arthur. She's actually the younger sister of Morgan Le Fay, and her original name was Nimue. She actually gained the name Xanadu when she spent time in Kubla Khan's court. For many of you who may know the Sam Taylor Coleridge poem, in Xanadu did Kubla Khan, blah, 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 blah. I don't know the whole of it. But yeah, she's got a very long history in the DC Comics, especially with characters such as the Spectre. She's got a very, very weird history with him, including in post-crisis continuity, him taking her eyes. She tried to regrow them 14 times, but they kept burning out because the Spectre is just that OP. So this is a show that is promising probably a lot of crazy mysticism. I think we are going to get characters like the Spectre. I think maybe as well we'll get some crossover characters from like their other Justice League Dark projects, because the character is tied heavily in with all those characters, especially John Constantine. And some eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed she was in the Swamp Thing series. I didn't initially. I forgot that. But she was there. As either Nimue or Xanadu. But yeah, that's her deal, basically. Ooh, fun story as well, actually. She actually was in love with Zatanna's father, but didn't pursue the relationship because she saw his future and realized she couldn't compete with his actual true love, who would then end up giving birth to Zatanna. So she kind of let him be. Fun little story there. So yeah, Madam Xanadu, we're getting HBO Max series. What do you guys think?
Well, my first impressions from the character, like looking at her, I can understand something like appearing in Swamp Thing, because I can imagine her again, like seeing the imagery and stuff, that she could be this kind of like old, like, you know, mystic witch sort of character, especially appearing in somewhere like a swamp or something like that. But I kind of just see her, hear her story, and you know, the fact that she's getting a DC show on HBO Max, and I just think, why when you've got Zatanna? Especially the fact that she pretty much kind of looks, to me, quite like Zatanna. So I'm a bit like, you have got the, you know, like I said, the fact that sorceress from the Arthurian mythology, because obviously Nimue is, you know, like a big part of that, but I don't know, I just think that she doesn't, to me, look visually distinct enough to like differentiate her from Zatanna. So I'm kind of like, where are we at with Zatanna again? Was she supposed to get a series, or was it a film?
She is getting a movie. Also, you want visually distinct. Zatanna wears a top hat and fishnets. Madam Xanadu has no freaking eyes.
Well, I did well when you say that, but then like the older depictions of her, like from the old comics, Like, I can't see that they just do that straight away. Because again, if you look at the, like I said, I'm looking at like the old Doorway to Nightmare covers and stuff like that, and she's just there like without bandages or anything like that. But I'm just thinking like woman with long black hair who's like a sorceress, and Zatanna again. Recently, they kind of ditched the hat and everything in her recent sort of depictions. So yeah, I don't know. Just I don't think there's enough visually or even description wise to sort of distinguish them enough, especially if you're going to be having these projects come out at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. I'm unfamiliar with the character, so like when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, okay, that's happening. Like, I find it really interesting JJ's approach to, whatever he's doing, whatever this deal entails at Warner Brothers and DC, because it seems to be very much like, you know what, I like this character, let's do that one. And this one, and that one. And I see there is some form of plan shaping, like with Justice League Dark, Zatanna, and now this. They're clearly setting up a little horror sort of universe within the sort of DC characters, which I really love. I hope they continue with that, because I've always thought DC has incredible characters linked to the horror genre. Like bring in Constantine, bring in Deadman, Swamp Thing, all of that. It's all really good stuff. So I hope they continue in that fashion. But like Dave, I don't really see, like, visually you can have a distinction between them, but at the same time, they're still sorceresses, I should say, magic, that sort of thing. That, I don't know. I don't see what's going to differentiate.
I think it's just headlining her own series. Like I said, if she was like a part of another series, no problem. Or if they wanted to like put her into the Justice League Dark because Zatanna's doing her own thing. But it's just the fact that they would be like the Zatanna movie and then her having her own series.
That's what I mean.
Just like she's similar characters.
She's not a big enough name for me to go, oh, she's getting her own series. Like if she was a member in the Justice League Dark, I would be more on board of saying, okay, let's see who this character is. And if she wows me, I'll be like, oh wow, I need to learn more about this character. Very much like, I haven't seen the film yet, but from what I've seen from the trailers, everybody's really going to love what John Cena's doing with the Peacemaker. Cool. Give him a series because everybody, like, the reception is really good. But this seems like they've announced the Peacekeeper series before, anyone's even seen the Suicide Squad film, like the studios or anything like that. So I would have preferred if they did sort of that approach. Have her in like a team film or series like the Justice League Dark. And if we're really happy with what we see and the studio's happy, then give her own series. But I think you're going to really struggle to bring people in just on her name alone.
Yeah, no, I'm actually kind of like in agreement with it. Like, I do love the character, but when I did hear that they were making a series, I was a bit surprised because, as you said, I just don't. It's not one of those characters which people are going to go watch the show just because they hear the name and they're just like, oh, I need to see what this is about. But I think it has potential though to actually be like a very exciting series because she's so long lived. This like could potentially be like kind of like how Eternals is supposed to be a story or like spreading 7,000 years condensed into one film. This could be a show that just like details a lot of periods of time in history. Like she could like starting off in Camelot. Because, like, whether people like it or not, the Arthurian myths are very important to the DC canon in the comics. And then just have him moving through time. You could have bits with her meeting, like, John Zatara. Like, that could kind of maybe link into the Zatanna film, maybe. I don't know. I think it is definitely not the show I expected to be announced, but nevertheless, I think I am excited for it because, I mean, whilst I hear what you guys saying, maybe it's a bit different from me, knowing the comics as well as I do, because I do not think Madam X and Zatanna are actually like that similar characters beyond the fact that they're both sorceresses.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like the on paper kind of pitch to an audience kind of angle. But I think the problem with the Camelot stuff is that, again, I think a lot of people have shown that they are not interested in that from like films that have come out based on Arthurian legend. Also, we had that Netflix series recently, which was based on like Nimue Cursed, and that was kind of taking like the Arthurian legends and bringing in like fairies and different like fantasy creatures and magic, and she was like the hero. And that series wasn't great, so that wouldn't help its image as well. I think if they went down that route, I think they would be better going down the kind of voodoo magic kind of stuff. And I think if she was in Swamp Thing, I would maybe keep it tied to Swamp Thing, because a lot of people did like that series, but felt that it was unfair that it was cancelled. But yeah, I think you definitely need to make it very different. So I suppose it would depend a lot on the casting. But I did think Peacemaker in my head as well. I kind of thought, well, if you can give Peacemaker a series, maybe this is, again, where DC can differentiate themselves from Marvel, rather than going, right, Wanda and, the Falcon had their time in the films, and now they're going to get their own series. Who they're already big comic characters. Well, maybe it is better that we don't get a Zatanna series or a Nightwing series or something like that, that they are left for the films where they deserve to be. They aren't already sidelining them, and the ones who do get a series are literally these like niche, bizarre characters that we will then grow to sort of learn more about and be introduced to. So that could be the approach they're going for, which would be interesting. So I'm on board if they're doing it in that way. But if it's a kind of like, this is just a subpar Zatanna, then, I think that would be a mistake.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still skeptical with their approach of HBO Max, because it just seems like the riskier projects, just whack them on there. Sure, all the projects that include women and people of color, just whack them on the service, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we see what you're doing, WB. We see what you're fucking doing.
Mm-hmm. See what sticks.
It's really fucking obvious.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back.
Throughout my life, the 10 rings gave our family power. If you want them to be yours one day, you have to show me you are strong enough to carry them.
You are a product of all who came before you. The legacy of your family. You are your mother. And whether you like it or not, you are also your father.
So we're back now, and we're here to talk about our main topic, and that is the second trailer for Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. This is a more in-depth trailer, giving us a better look at the story, at the characters, and what their motivations are. Full of visuals, full of kung fu. But obviously, I have to get the opinion of our very own Dave first. Now, Dave, last time we spoke about the teaser trailer for Shang-Chi, you were a bit skeptical. You were unsure on why you should be invested in this character, what his skill set is. And you just didn't really understand kung fu. So I have to ask you again, Dave. Do you get it?
Now, let's get it right. I understood the skill set, because that is what kung fu is. I didn't know what his superpower was, which this film is still not telling me.
I told you.
It's the job of the film. But so I think this, well, I really liked the first. I liked the teaser. I thought it was really strong. And I think that this continues to, again, like I watch it and I'm like, wow, this looks so visually stunning. And I really respect the scale they're going for in terms of very much like an ode to sort of Asian cinema and martial arts films. And very much, making it an epic, which I think is good. In some ways, I do look at it and think, it does this scream sort of MCU, and in a way that's good. It's kind of like when we saw Guardians, where you're like, oh my god, this is so different. So that is great in some ways, that it looks so different, but then you do wonder then how many people will sort of realize. But I think they've done it enough times now to sort of be safe in that sort of answer. So I love a lot of the action we're seeing here. I love a lot of the characters and a lot of the performances, but I think I'm just not a big fan of characters who like rely on their parents. I'm just not I'm not very interested in that personally. I'm not a big fan of like, you need to be invested in me because my dad's important. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of that kind of like, I'm important because my dad's important. My dad is the villain kind of thing. It is interesting in certain films, certain like action films and that kind of stuff. There's plenty of stories where it does work. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's just not something that I sort of personally look for in a superhero project. I am looking for like, right, what makes this guy special? What's his powers? What's his deal? And I kind of felt like I maybe had it when I saw like the thumbnail or like the screenshots where you had like the gold and the blue with the rings and everything. But I was like, oh, he's holding the rings. That's really disappointing, because I felt that might have been like some chi or some sort of like energy or something. So again, it's kind of like latching his powers onto kind of like an object, which again, I felt the Marvel was going away from. I felt with Iron Man and everything like that, so many characters were kind of like reliant on technology or different elements, Thor and the hammer and all that kind of stuff. But when we kind of got like Captain Marvel, etc., we were going into the more fantastical superpowers, the actual like, I shoot laser beam kind of stuff. So here again, it's kind of like, oh, it's the 10 rings. Like, that's why he's powerful. And because of his dad, that's like why he's in this story. So it's just the story I'm not sure if I'm quite gelling with. I think it looks like really well told. It looks amazing. And the emotion of it looks fantastic. And the characters look like they're all doing a great job. And it's a very emotional and effective story. But I just don't know if it's kind of like the thing that I go like, oh yeah, that's badass. That's cool. I'm really into this. So yeah, that's where I come from on it. But, I do love it looks very crazy in terms of like all the crazy lions and all sorts of madness going on action-wise. But again, the central thing of this is him and his dad, and that's what concerns me, is that's the bit I'm not gelling with.
I actually think that's like a fair enough concern. I won't call it a criticism. I'll call it a concern.
Yeah, I'm not calling it a criticism, because again, I don't look at it and go, that looks bad. I'm just looking at it and going like, okay, well, I'm not sure if that's...
I'm not going to lie. If we went into the film and the film was basically saying, oh yeah, like the reason Shang-Chi is so amazing is because of the 10 rings. Yeah, I will be annoyed at that, but I don't think they are going in a direction, because if they are going to stay loyal to the character, the man's a beast without the 10 rings. He could solo pretty much anything without the 10 rings. Like, so, and that's why as well, I may give it a pass if he has an over-reliance on the rings in this film, because like, you stick with that kind of formula, that means the next film, he's probably going to have to learn to do shit without the rings, and then we'll get... But I think like this first film is going to have like a mixture of that. And I think I hope it does delve into the whole like chi side of it. I was getting that vibe during that like one scene where I think it looks like that woman is like training him in like the forest, and like the leaves are like flowing like with the way she moves her hands. So I'm hoping that's maybe like them hinting at chi.
That's what I was thinking when I saw that. It's Michelle Yeoh, which is like an amazing actress, so I'm really pumped to see her as well. So I thought that I was like, okay, we are getting a bit of powers teaching him, so I'm going to be more forgiving if it's kind of like the trailers don't want to show us too much yet, and they're like kind of showing us the rings, but then he realizes his power or something like that.
Yeah, because I think there has been a trend with Marvel films fairly recently, is that they try and make their trailers just like in a way that it's like almost impossible to discern what the actual plot is, or you often go into the film and find, oh, what I thought was the plot based on the trailers is actually like
the opposite, doesn't it?
Which I kind of like that they do that, because I do hate when trailers kind of just like show the plot of the film, so yeah, I think as a trailer it was fantastic. It grabbed me. All the action looks great. I mean, can we talk about two particular moments of the trailer now? Should we talk about them now? Because I don't know which one is the headline. So let's go for the sub-headline first, which is Abomination has just crashed right out of 2008 and has landed smack dab in the middle of Shang-Chi fighting Wong. That just looks amazing. And I can't wait to see what that's all about and why those characters are there and what's going to happen.
That was my first reaction, kind of like, I was just like, who is this fish guy? And then I was just like, oh, right, apparently this is Abomination, but because he looks nothing like that in the 2008.
He's got the fish ears.
Yeah. But I only sort of know him from that Incredible Hulk film, so I was like, oh, this is apparently what he looks like now? It's like, I don't know, is he adapted or something since then?
Yeah, I hear and see your concerns, Dave. I totally get it. I personally don't have those concerns because I just think it's quite common amongst the MCU to be reliant on a certain, not reliant, but to be attached to a certain thing, you could say, whether that be an item or, Cap's had the serum. He wouldn't be who he is without the serum. Black Panther, he has that weird flower thing that they have to make him have super abilities and stuff like that. So I think it's part of the MCU, but for me, the way I look at it is that you still have to be a certain person of skill and of character and of almost like Mjolnir, like of worthiness in a way to properly utilize and use the 10 rings. That's the vibe I'm getting it from it. And Tony Leung, who's playing the Mandarin, is obviously a man of stature, a man of power, so he can obviously utilize the wing for his evil ways. And I really like that we're going to get the balance to that with Michelle Yeoh, who looks like, I think it's not really confirmed in the trailer, but I'm pretty sure she's playing his mother, who is going to be like the sort of the angel compared to the devil side on his father, on his shoulder, teaching him the fantastical ways. I love that they seem to be homaging Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon with a lot of the stuff with Michelle Yeoh, while if we go to the Tony Leung stuff, that's more up close personal martial arts like Bruce Lee and Jet Li and Jackie Chan and that sort of 70s, 80s martial arts stuff. So I think the film looks stunning. The lore behind it looks really interesting, like that big battle with all these weird creatures and stuff like that. This film seems to be setting itself up bigger than what it actually is. But with I hear your concerns, Dave, about also with the attachment stuff. But I think with the fantastical, and we are going more cosmic and more fantastical with the MCU, you still have to have the occasional heroes that are quite grounded to Earth and within the Earth that we live in and their sort of adventures on here. And I think Shang-Chi is a character to do that. So I think we do need a bit more, not so much techie, but, some sort of mystical tech thing. And also, we don't necessarily know how the rings operate. Are they tech? It could be magic, and the MCU...
Well, yeah, well, my problem isn't so much with them being technology. It's just, again, like the character, having it be like that the character's powers come from the rings. So like Tom said, you want it to be like, yeah, if he's like strong in chi, if it's kind of like Iron Fists and stuff like that, if he can handle them in that way, that's fine. But I think it's just because it's not like Captain America, again, it was the serum, but the film wasn't structured around Captain America and the shield, and it wasn't like, right, if you have this shield, you will be Captain America. This is like the thing that hinders whether you are a hero or not.
Well, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier would say otherwise.
Well, that again, that's a different kind of symbolism kind of thing. That is not in terms of like the actual powers.
I know what you mean.
But I think that, again, I just see it as the way that the MCU has evolved. We had in Ragnarok, are you god of hammers? It's like that idea of like the power being within you. I just feel that they've evolved since that point of like, right, you need to have this weapon and this item, which Cap is from that era. Whereas like now, Doctor Strange, yeah, he has an item. He had the Eye of Agamotto, but again, it's like he has magic from within him. Black Panther, again, is a kind of lineage thing, and it's still, he's super powered in some way, but it's not just like he...
I think this is going to be a lineage thing as well. Like, if his father's got it, I think there's... Like, the 10 rings as well, it has to be utilized somehow, because fans have also been asking for the 10 rings for ages. Do you know what I mean? So, I do think they might spin it on its tail like the law. I mean, they've obviously changed how it looks, because it's not on their actual fingers, it's on their arms, which I think is also an homage to 70s martial arts films, where they had those metal rings that they use for fighting as well, which is really cool, that you always get the ching 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 sound effects back then. They're really awesome. So I think it's an homage to that, and also I do think there will be a sort of lineage with the 10 rings, that maybe it's been passed down from generation to generation. And he says even in the trailer, look, I've trained your life for this, you're meant to sort of take over and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it's a lineage fantastical thing that goes far back, to like the ancient times, you could say. Because we've also got Fing Fang Foom!
Yes!
Fucking dragon! Yes! Honestly, amazing
Iron
to
Fist.
fucking seeing it. To finally see the the dragon that we've all been, a lot of people have also been speculating. Is that Sisu from Raya and the Last Dragon? You know, because Aquafina's, because the dragon is in like water, or what it looks like, sort of water. So, and I've seen also people speculate, I don't know, could be true, could be wrong, that, you know how the rings are sort of around the people's arms? Well, they would be big enough to fit on the fingers of a dragon.
Or the like body, if it's the kind of Chinese dragons, which have like very slim, round bodies, it could have, you know, been around the dragon's neck. Or something.
the headline is Fing Fang Foom.
Finally getting Fing Fang Foom.
Are they gonna call him that though in the film, or are they gonna like call him like Derek?
I think they'll call him like Foom or something, and then it'll be like, you know, and then in Legend it's like, oh, the Fing Fang, you know, or something like that. But yeah, he looks a bit like as well, like, I'm not sure if it's just in Fantastic Beasts, but I'm sure there's some sort of like mythology behind it. But it's like a Kelpie or something, is it? It's like a Scottish Loch Ness kind of thing. It kind of give me that vibes as well, which I
don't
think...
Kelpies have like they're kind of more like, I can't remember my Harry Potter lore now, but I swear Kelpies are a bit more like, I don't know, closer to frogs than dragons. Or am I thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. There was a creature in like, oh well, yeah, apparently like a, yeah, I don't know how you spell it, but oh no, yeah, Kelpie, a water Kelpie is a shape-shifting... Oh, okay, right, yeah, they can be like humans and stuff. No, I'm just thinking of in Fantastic Beasts, the second one, there was like that like seaweed-looking creature that he was riding in the second film, so it kind of just looked like a bit like that to me. So I think that's a good way of selling it, rather than when you see Fing Fang Foom in the comics and stuff, he's kind of like a Godzilla kind of like monster, like just there in like, you know, New York City, and looks a bit ridiculous. So I was like, I don't know how you're going to do this character. But if they do it in that way of a kind of more mythological sea creature or something, then that's a good way of bringing him in, I think.
Do not besmirch the name Fing Fang Foom. Do not besmirch his name.
It would make sense, because we also see that sequence where all that water comes out of those like ruins and stuff like that. Remember that?
Yeah.
There's a sequence where it's all coming and they're all like, whoa, what the hell's going on? As they're all like touching the water as it like stops. So yeah, visually this film looks absolutely stunning as well. I love like the neon, the cyberpunk aesthetic. I can't remember what that character was called, but like the Mandarin's number 2, the henchman, the one with the mask, looks badass, honestly. And some of the moves that they're doing, I found as well really inventive and interesting, that they're going to have a fight on like a construction site, like where they clean like windows and stuff like that. I thought that was awesome. I can't wait to see that fight.
Yeah. When I saw him like falling through the scaffolding, I got major Jackie Chan vibes.
Yes, same. You know, when Jackie Chan used to always like go down scaffolding for some strange reason. Yeah,
just constantly. Just like, oh shit, scaffolding! I must fight here.
I noticed so many homages to like old Asian cinema and martial arts films. They're really going for it, and I hope this film does for Asian Americans like it did for people of color, with like, as Black Panther did. You know, like I've seen that obviously a lot of the Asian markets, you know, the Asian markets struggle sometimes with Western cinema that portrays people from those countries. Like they actually prefer to see Europeans and Americans in their cinema, funnily enough. So I hope what it can do, though, is that it brings out the community of Asian Americans, like people in America and throughout Europe as well, that they can all come out to this film and support it. Because I really hope, and I think it's good enough that it can do that.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one, I think, isn't it? Because like Disney tried it before with Mulan, and that just failed completely. And it's, I think, because say somewhere like Japan is quite, you know, in some ways, you know, they have a lot of their own media and like anime and that kind of stuff, but then because they design their anime characters so much like Americans and, you know, Western characters or people, then they are so more forgiving of like American heroes, etc. Whereas China seems to be more like Chinese bred talent made by Chinese filmmakers, because, you know, obviously their films are very successful. I don't know how successful we can like believe that they are, like based on the numbers that come out. But, you know, from what we've seen with like Mulan and even like films like The Great Wall, which had like Matt Damon and stuff in it, it doesn't seem like they kind of vibe with this kind of like Americans make a Chinese film. So I don't know, like you said, Jake, I think they would have to rely on the American, you know, Asian American community. Because I think it's very different from the African American community, because they are such, you know, I'm not saying that like one is lesser than the other or anything like that, but I think it's easier to depict them in a way because they are such a big culture within America, whereas as we've seen within The Heights that's just come out with like Latino audiences, that can vary so much in terms of people being like, well, that person's from Japan, that person's from China, this person's from Korea. You know, they might have issue with actual what Asian representation you're depicting, whereas, you know, African American communities tend to be more linked to Africa or America. There's not as much like overlap in like different types of African American communities, etc. So I think that will be interesting to see. And I think what I liked as well in terms of like the visuals is that scaffolding scene you mentioned kind of even had like a kind of James Bond Batman kind of vibe as well. Like it's kind of like Batman the animated series. They were always like fighting on like scaffolding and stuff like that. I think even in The Dark Knight that was a scene, wasn't it? So you are getting a lot of different styles and genres in here, which isn't just kind of like, oh, you know, like Chinese cinema, you know, all at once. It's kind of like, you know, amalgamation of a lot of different things, which I think is good.
Yeah, no, because like the weird thing is, it's like I can never put my finger on it, but like in the trailers, both of them, there have been times where I have just been like Dark Knight vibes. But I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but there's just something in the trailers where it's like giving me the vibes of like dark. I don't know if that means like, you know, whether it's just like some small things I'm picking up on, or maybe it's a sign that this film is going to be incredibly successful and well loved. And Dave can stop complaining, although he probably will, just to annoy us.
I'm not complaining, like you said. I've just got like concerns, you know. Again, I don't think anything is like bad. I'm just, again, not sure if it's like gelling with me. And like you said, Jake, you know, I love that mythological stuff. You know, I want it to be magic. I want it to be that kind of stuff. I don't want it to just be technology. And if it is, like we said, and as you said, Tom, as well, you know, if he's got like this power or this chi, that's how he can hold the rings and stuff. Yeah, I'm totally into that. I'm fine with that. I just don't want it to be the kind of like, he's this guy who can do kung fu, but like he gets the powers because of the rings. You know, it has to be like he has this power within him and they're boosted by the rings, or that's why he can hold them or something. And as we said, if that scene with Michelle Yeoh and everything is showing how he taps into this kind of like more mystical energy and stuff, yeah, I'll be completely fine with it. But there's also then the concern about like just riding the coattails of your father kind of stuff. But we'll see. But I think that in terms of the different styles and stuff like that, and like how much is for like Asian cinema, I think it'd be foolish to say that this other film would like potentially like put this in danger. But I think it is interesting that Snake Eyes film is coming out, and that looks very, very similar. I think, is it Paramount who make those G.I. Joe films?
I think so, yeah.
And I think they kind of did a
Mortal Kombat earlier this year as well.
Yeah, no, but Snake Eyes looks like this film. It's like the same thing. It's like, you know, an Asian lead who's like, you know, got like this, you know, like I'm a warrior, and like he's like going after somebody and stuff like that. It very much seems like the kind of like same story. And it's almost like Paramount did it dirty by being like, right, let's release this trailer before they get their official Shang-Chi trailer out, which is quite... So again, I don't know if people are then going to be confused because Snake Eyes is coming out first, and people will be like, oh, I've seen this, you know, already. I think obviously Marvel at the end of the day is always going to make more money. People love Marvel. They've got that familiarity with the MCU. So I don't think it would be so much a case of like it would suffer massively financially, but there might be a bit of, you know, people feeling that like, oh, this is the same thing, or a bit of confusion amongst just general audiences. Not so much, you know, comic book fans will still give you like 600-700 million in box office anyway, but it's whether it would be enough to, as we've mentioned before, to get it to $1 billion if you haven't got everyone on board.
I agree. I think that's a good point to bring up, Dave. It's definitely a factor to pay attention to. All right, so that's it. Unless you have any last words to say on Shang-Chi and this trailer?
No, I mean, I think it's hard for me because, like, I do 100% understand Dave's concerns, but it's just a bit difficult for me because, like, a lot of the things he says he's a bit worried about, I'm like, I'd actually be cool with that. Like, I'm okay with the whole aspect of his father because, like, I think that is just going to be a big plot point. It's like, obviously, like, despite the fact that it's going to be, his father's a bit of a bastard, his mother cares for him and teaches him like a new way of doing things, the way she phrases in the trailer, like she basically makes that point where she's just like, look, you've got a lot of me in you, but you have to recognize you've got him in you as well. And I think it is going to be that kind of amalgamation of just, like a combination of him going, oh, so I have my father and my mother in me. But more than that, it's the fact that his father is like trained his body, whereas his mother, it seems more like she's like training his more like spiritual side, which is a kind of a nice touch, I think. So yeah, like whilst I do get your concerns, Dave, I think those are just concerns that like I sometimes get out of just any origin film for anyone. Because I often find with origin films, it's just like, I don't know, just I always have like a kind of initial hesitation or concern where I'm just like, well, we've not seen this character like before. How are they going to handle it? But I genuinely think Shang-Chi is going to be outstanding. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. Whether it'll make $1 billion, I don't know. I don't know how the climate is going to be, like how easy it is now for films to make $1 billion.
Yeah, I think in a different climate, pre-pandemic time, I think it definitely would have had the potential. But with things are nowadays, I think we're still a bit way off before we reach that $1 billion mark, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Black Widow about 600 million worldwide box office, and this about 750 maybe. If we're being very generous. I think Marvel can bring in that money, but I don't think we'll get to $1 billion.
What about Eternals?
We'll see, though. That's difficult because
that's a harder one to sell, I think.
Yeah, especially because it potentially is in the winter, which might be like, 85th wave or whatever it's going to be by that time.
Lockdown 6.
I don't know. I that one I think could I think it could be another 700 million, but I could even see it going up to 800 if it is amazing enough. If it's like, if the cast and everything clicks with enough people, and sorry, what's the director's name again?
Chloe Zhao.
Blanked on her name. Chloe Zhao. If she does bring something really like special out the bag, then it could really go up there if everything goes well. Like I said, if not, could be like 500 million if the pandemic gets worse and all that kind of stuff. We'll see. But I just quickly going back. I just want to highlight with that Snake Eyes trailer. Again, I just find this funny. It literally, like the trailer is got like Snake Eyes fighting in like a cage ring and everything like that. There's like crime lords all being like, you're going to come with me and everything like that. Then it's like him on a plane and he's looking all guilty. Then he's in like, a Shaolin monks or like temple thing. And then they're fighting in like a neon city with swords at one point, and then they're fighting on top of cars. I'm like, the similarities are crazy. I don't know who's copied who. I'm assuming it's Paramount has copied Marvel. But yeah, I just find it mad that these are coming out the same summer.
Yeah, no, you're kind of right there. I think it was picked up on.
It's the resurgence of martial arts. That's what it is. Hopefully. We'll get another 70s run like we had, but in the 20s.
But they need the story-wise, they still need to be different. Watch the trailer after this. It's crazy how much they are similar. You can imagine the Shang-Chi music train playing over the top of that.
And Mortal Kombat was not a good start either. Woof.
No.
Right, so that's it then. So we're just going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with the comics for you to pick up this week.
Well, after X-Men hit at the box office, all the studios started buying up every comic property they could get their dirty little hands on.
Got some very interesting pulls this week. Very, very interesting pulls this week. We'll start off with Marvel. We'll start off with Marvel and carrying on with what we've just been talking about. Shang-Chi. So I'm recommending Shang-Chi issue 2. Here's a storyline where basically the name of the storyline is Shang-Chi versus the Marvel Universe. And in part 2, it looks like he's going to be coming up against Captain America. So, two of the best hand-to-hand combatants in the entirety of the Marvel Universe look to be going at odds. And, that sells it, really. I mean, it's Shang-Chi versus Steve Rogers in a fist fight. I'd pick that up just to find out who wins. Staying with Marvel, then we've got X Factor issue 10. It's the last dance at the Hellfire Gala. The Hellfire Gala, by the way, has been just delightful. So Leah Williams' X Factor is bringing that to a close where secrets will be revealed. Vengeance will be had and someone's number is up. and you'll never guess whose. So if you want to find out whose number is up, and if you want to see The Last Dance of the Hellfire Gala, which is easily one of the best events Marvel's put out recently, just my opinion, be picking that up. Moving on over to DC then, we've got Infinite Frontier Secret Files. As the Infinite Frontier continues to be expanded, we're just getting a lot more fun stories. This one is including a Psycho Pirate story, and if you're not caught up completely on DC continuities and all that, Psycho Pirate is very important to the various crises. And in fact, he kind of exists outside continuity, where he's aware of all continuities at once. So seeing him in an Infinite Frontier issue, I think is definitely going to be something you want to pick up. Staying with DC again, we got Green Arrow, 80th anniversary special issue. So it's a collection of stories from various writers, all showing their love to one of the best DC characters, Green Arrow. It includes a heartbreaking short story in relation to Denny O'Neil. It's basically kind of just like a silent biography over several pages, and it's honestly something you want to see. Even if you don't pick up the comic, I believe DC have like put up that particular story online for free. So definitely check that out. And then non-Marvel or DC, it's been a while, I think, since I brought this up in a comic poll list, but it's Star Wars The High Republic. Issue 6 is coming out, and the galaxy unites against the Drenga, and the frontier is in crisis. So, I mean, it's Star Wars. It's a comic with Star Wars characters. It's Star Wars. Pick it up. It's going to be awesome. So reading off all the lists there then, we got at Marvel, X Factor issue 10, The Last Dance at the Hellfire Gala. We've got Shang-Chi issue 2, where he faces off against Captain America. Infinite Frontier Secret Files over at DC, where Psycho Pirate is making an appearance, and the Green Arrow 80th anniversary special, which is a must-read for any fans of the character. And then moving on over, well, I guess it's still technically with Marvel, but it's not actually Marvel, but it is. It's Star Wars The High Republic, issue 6. So, anything you guys want to add, or anything you're interested in that list? What were your thoughts, feelings?
Well, I'll definitely be picking up the High Republic, as this week the new books have also been released, like the second wave of the High Republic storytelling is starting now. So yeah, I'm digging deep into that. I'm really loving what they're doing with the Drenga and the Nile. It's just weird Star Wars madness, and it's just I'm really enjoying that the Bad Batch is giving me all the fan favorites and the nostalgia, but the High Republic is really giving me brand new Star Wars stuff I never would have thought would be in Star Wars before. So I'm really enjoying that stuff, and obviously I'm going to pick up the Green Arrow stuff and Shang-Chi as well, because I just want to see Shang-Chi go toe-to-toe with Cap. That's always going to be fun to watch. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think Star Wars is always a good shout, isn't it? And the good thing with the High Republic is, again, you have these, which is very much up my street, these kind of like badass-looking Jedi. You've got like different colored lightsabers, different like aliens, characters, and they all look like really well designed. And essentially the idea with this is kind of, you know, a lot of the strengths of Star Wars animation, especially the Clone Wars, etc., was the fact that they were able to like dig into like the lore and the legends of stuff so much. And, you know, essentially here they're kind of like creating then their own like backstories and lore, which they can potentially adapt or reference, etc., in film and TV in the future. And yeah, I just saw the image for that Shang-Chi versus the Marvel Universe. Damn, why didn't they pick that costume for his like film one? Like that, the one where it's like the red with like the yellow, like the gold scale. Like,
I really like
looks
that outfit.
badass.
Yeah,
that looks so cool. The film one by comparison looks really crap. I'm sorry. Like that looks really, really good. I love it. I don't know why. It's just something different. It's like the yellow, the armbands look really cool. The pose he's doing in that, like when it's like him above like Spider-Man and Iron Man. If I saw that as like the film poster, I would be fully sold. I wouldn't care anything about the father stuff or 10 rings or anything. I'd be like, yeah, this guy, you know. So adapt that, Marvel.
He finally gets it. He finally gets it.
To be fair, like I said, if you look at the other images, I'll send it to you afterwards. That one where it's just like him with like Spider-Woman and all those sort of characters in the background. He's just wearing like a red jumpsuit. He kind of like, to me, like some of his images, like I know his like classic costume is that kind of like red jumpsuit, but it just kind of looks like an X-Men sort of like member to me. But that costume with the red and the yellow and everything, that looks like a solo character. It doesn't look like a sort of uniform.
I mean, I'm just saying,
cool.
Shang-Chi, if he wanted, could solo the X-Men.
Probably,
yeah.
I mean, he's taken on the Marvel universe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he can't, but just dress well when he's doing it, and that costume is very good.
Yes, Shang-Chi, it's all about style.
Let's hope we get there in the sequels then, Dave.
Yeah, that usually happens. Sometimes they're a bit iffy in their first film with the costume, and then it gets better. So,
right. So, thank you all for listening to this episode. Appreciate everyone coming on board. Every week listening to us geek out about all this stuff. But Dave, what have you got going on? And because we're also speaking about Star Wars, what can we plug to the people?
Well, you can catch me and Jake talking about the Bad Batch on the Monday Lorians, which is always very fun, especially when I'm correct about theories about Omega. I'm not going to sort of drop that for a few weeks now. So that's been great, and getting characters like Cad Bane, etc., where we're just sort of like geeking out over all of that stuff. So go check that out. That's on freshtakehub.com/the Monday Lorians, and you can catch it on iTunes and Spotify and all those. Also, you can catch me on Well Good Movies, as I mentioned at the top of this, where I was busy editing that right before we went recording this. And I do need to encourage people to check out like our latest 2 episodes, because they have been 2 of the funnest, most bizarre, crazy episodes I think we've ever done. And, it's talking about like Little Miss Sunshine, and then the newest one is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. But for anyone who knows the show, we do these crazy end games, etc., which Tom and Jake were involved with a few weeks ago. And we've had like 2 of our craziest end games recently. And it's probably only going to get crazier because we got our 50th episode coming up soon. So, check all of that out. And I should have some more stuff coming up on Fresh Takes very soon.
Ooh, the big 50, number 50. Ooh. What about yourself, Tom?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Gapperboy, or just search Comic Book Shogun. I'm sure I should hopefully be the only thing that pops up in that. And there I just deliver my incredibly hot takes on comic books. Although that now at the moment it's a bit dry because I'm still recovering from the end of Mass Effect. It's still broken. But so just find me on Twitter. Come talk to me. Come ask me for comic recommendations. Or tell me if I'm wrong about it. Tell me if you think I'm wrong about anything, and I will gladly debate you furiously for hours.
Please tell me if I'm right about like Shang-Chi, and then I've got some backup.
No, don't.
While you're there.
No.
Tom, the last thing you want to do is invite people on Twitter to tell you that you're wrong.
Oh, God,
bring it on, Twitter. I can take it. I'm Ginger. I've been bullied all my life.
I, on the other hand, will not do that, but you can still find me on Twitter at Sweaty Jake, and I'm also on Letterboxd at Jake Hart, so that's Hart. And you can also find the show at Cowls Masks on Twitter, and we're also on Facebook at Cowls and Masks. And if you're using Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever you use to listen to podcasts, please subscribe and follow us on there. And if you're on Apple, leave us a rating and a review, as it all helps us go up in the rankings. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you all next week. From myself, from Tom, from Dave, and his concerns with father issues, goodbye now.